Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, Rohan Rajaratnam, the Managing Director of Words Advertising, is in the hot seat today to give us his take on the local ad industry as well as emerging global trends. Up next, LMD columnist Hasita Premratna assesses market performance as well as the changes to the tax structure announced by the government. And we wrap up the show with Anshari Pereira, Senior Product Lead of Frontier Research, who provides us with an analysis of the new tax structure. That's the lineup for Benchmark.
Hello and welcome to Benchmark. I'm Savitri Rodrigo. The ad industry is under the microscope today, and we have with us on Benchmark Rohan Rajaratnam, the Managing Director of Words Advertising. Our focus areas today includes the performance of the local ad industry compared to that of other countries, also the main strengths of the ad industry, and are those strengths being leveraged to increase competitiveness, and are technological developments enhancing the industry's competitiveness. So Rohan, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. When you do look at the advertising industry, Sri Lanka's advertising industry, what do you see?
I've been in the industry now for over 3 decades, and the improvement or the development and the progress that it has made over these last 3 decades is phenomenal. If I might take a few minutes to sort of explain to you my feelings about the ad industry itself, is it's considered the second oldest profession. But really it was, let's say in the 1400s, that really we can start, beginning to trace what advertising is all about, from the time printing came into being, which is Gutenberg in Germany. So the real reason I'm bringing that up is that from the 1400s, if I were to exaggerate slightly, up until I came into advertising in Sri Lanka, not a lot really changed. So we had printing and the electronic media came into being. Yes, all that is there, but not much of a change. But in the last 2 decades, things have changed far quicker than it has in the previous centuries, I would say. So yes, in Sri Lanka also the development has been very, very rapid in the recent past, and we have moved from if I was to use certain words, I'm sure people won't even remember, like a telex machine or a fax machine or let's say typesetting and that kind of stuff, because that era has completely been deleted.
So according to media intelligence firm Magna, the advertising industry in Sri Lanka grew by 14%, while Pakistan and India 15 and 13% respectively. How does the performance of the local industry compare to that of other countries?
I feel that if I were to take India, I think the film industry in India is so large that the ad industry was well supported in terms of television production and film production, etc., by a really large cinematic industry there. In Sri Lanka, the progress has been comparatively slow, and we have moved from print to television, and from radio is always there, and now into digital and social media. But if I were to compare in terms of I would like to compare it in two aspects. One is from a conceptual perspective, and the other is from a production perspective. And what I spoke about earlier about cinema in India and all that is more from a production point of view. So I would think that conceptually we are up there with the others. Some of our agencies in this country have won international awards at Cannes and in Singapore and at the Spikes, and as well as at AdFest in Thailand. But from a production point of view, we are still quite dependent on outside resources, and I think that as an industry we should use our local resources far more than we do at the moment.
So, in the context of media, you mentioned that radio has always been around because there have been dips and ups, but has radio remained a constant?
Yes, there have been, but not as much as anyone would assume it to be. Radio has been the it has been our stronghold, I would say, from a media perspective and as a channel, and from two channels or a couple of with SLBC only in those years, we have now progressed to so many FM stations and in different languages, tailor-made to different audiences. For a certain age group, like my age group, I would say I'm stuck on a certain station, for example. So very clearly it's been segmented, and radio therefore has evolved and has kept in line with the progress that has been made in the industry. So radio still remains. The penetration for radio is very high, still very high, and even though other medium have come in and made an impact, radio still holds good.
What is your assessment of the industry in terms of innovation and value addition?
That's an area that I believe that we should and could improve more than we have in the recent past. There is a lot more innovation in terms of social media rather than the traditional media. But there has been. I mean, it would be wrong for me to say there has been no innovation in the traditional media, but not as much as we would have expected or we should have done. I feel strongly about the fact that the media as well has been a little slow in allowing us, or rather not slow, but rather not flexible enough to allow us to be as innovative as we want, because the agencies have tried and done different things even in the traditional media to stand out, to break the clutter, to be different, to innovate, but there are certain restrictions which do not allow us to do certain things which we would have otherwise liked to do.
So what is the role of the client? Are they receptive and open to ideas?
That's a tough question to answer. Truthfully, clients are very open and to new ideas, and they really allow us to come and present new ideas. The problem lies when ultimately it goes into execution and the approval to finally go ahead. With limited budgets, clients are, I would say, this would be a safe thing to say, which is clients more often are on the safe side. So they would rather be safe than most clients would rather be safe than a little innovative or a little risk, taking a little risk. So what happens in the end is that we just come back to the same thing. So though we might present a whole set of new ideas, we end up then taking the safe route.
So is there a generation gap, Rohan, in that decision-making process?
More a mindset. I wouldn't say that it's a generation gap. It is not because they don't want to try out new things, or they don't know how to try out, or anything like that. As I said again, it is more from a perspective of I'd rather do this and be sure that this will work because it has worked before, rather than try something new. But this is not, I'm talking in general. There are definitely clients who are very open, very not risk averse, who take a lot of chances and opportunities, and it works for them.
So we'll continue this discussion on the ad industry, Rohan, after the break. After the commercial break, Rohan Rajaratnam talks about some of the challenges facing the industry, and we also ask him to assess the talent pool in the industry. Stay with us.
We are a Sri Lankan bank. This is our home. That's why we are committed towards the future of this country, funding national development initiatives, because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
Welcome back to Benchmark. Let's now return to the discussion on the ad industry with Rohan Rajaratnam, Managing Director of Words Advertising. Rohan, considering that the ad industry is a fast evolving one and you are as good as your last communication to you with your customer, if you list out the challenges the industry faces, what would they be?
Okay. Actually, thank you for that question, because there are some challenges. One challenge that I see is that we need to come together as an industry in terms of developing and presenting a code of conduct, a code of ethics, so that no one else can sort of talk down to us or monitor us, so we are not managed by somebody else. So we should have our own code of conduct, our own code of ethics. Then there has to be certain fundamental standards in terms of how we are remunerated, or how we pitch for business, or what rate cards are, because there is such a variance that sometimes clients feel like, are you guys professional in what you all do? Somebody charges 10,000 for something, and there is this agency that's charging $1 million, and there's no exaggeration here. That's exactly how it is. So then it doesn't make sense, because there is nothing that you can back that up with, right? I mean, on what basis? Fundamentally, from an advertising point of view, anyway, it's all conceptual, so therefore it's difficult. However, given certain services like law, or legal, or medical, etc., there can be a way where we can find out how we could, for example, the development of certain conceptual, say a logo, for example. How much should it cost? I mean, roughly. There can be from one a scale that we can work with, not a arbitrary figure from some agency giving you 10,000 rupees for a logo, which is far better sometimes than the person who has charged you $1 million for a logo. So there has to be some kind of standard that needs to be brought into the industry, so that we are not seen as being very frivolous or very loose and not coordinated. Certain international agencies look after their workforce, their skill pool. There are international training programs that these international agencies run. There's a lot of interaction with their officers overseas. So there is some education, I would say, that is going on. But from an industry point of view, there still is nothing that really is out there. We are lagging. There were a couple of things that were started up. If I'm not mistaken, about 3 or 4 different programs that came over the years with some of the senior most people in the industry trying to initiate it. But they all died a natural death. We need to have somebody taking it seriously and doing it on a serious note, maybe with aligning themselves with international university. So we are all using the same people and it's going round and round. There's nothing, I shouldn't exaggerate. There is, but not enough coming from outside in terms of resources, in terms of human resources.
So what are the main strengths that you see in the local ad industry?
Frankly, the strength that we have is our ability to understand the consumer, because from the experiences that I've had, I feel strongly about the fact that we cannot plant people from overseas here who can really understand the psyche of the consumer, mine insights which are relevant and which can be used in conceptualization and development of communication, so that it touches the hearts of people. I feel that there have been many an occasion on which we have had situations where clients have felt, we need to get people from overseas to come down because it's a large campaign, and we're spending millions of rupees, and we would rather get somebody down from. And then eventually what really is developed and executed is done by the locals, right? Because they see that it can be fine-tuned. Yes, we have a lot to learn. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being, I'm not condescending in that manner. But what I'm trying to say is that the people we have, the skill that we have in the industry, is able to conceptualize and come up with creative ideas that strike at the heart of the consumer. They know the language, they know the tone of voice to be used, they know the behavioral change that they can bring about if they were to use certain insights. They are very clear about it because they are from here. They know the nuances, they understand the nuances, so they are able to develop material that strikes at the heart of the people here. And fundamentally, we are emotional people, and therefore really still the rational advertising doesn't work as well as the emotional advertising.
You did mention that the talent pool is good, it's creative, but at the same time, how do you view the talent pool realistically in the ad industry, and what actually stops people from getting into the industry?
The current talent pool, and this might be biased, this opinion might be biased, but the current talent pool is aging, and I haven't yet been able to see. There are a few, but there aren't as many as there used to be when I joined the industry. We had giants in the industry in terms of creatives, in terms of advertising professionals. We had a Deshabandhu, for example. Today we don't. We don't have anyone who can qualify to be a Deshabandhu also. So we are in a situation where there are a few youngsters who are good, but we don't have that. As I said, and in response to your last question, there is no set method by which we can attract them and educate them and bring them into the industry. So it's our fault, not theirs, because they are out there, and the creative ability is definitely out there. There's no two words about it. It's just the industry that has not helped and supported and brought these people in. When I say industry, I'm talking in general. Definitely there will be individuals who will say, Rohan, you're totally wrong. My agency did this, this and this. That's true. And there are agencies. Interns come in to work with them. They take students and train them, and they put them through the programs that they have, which is good. I am talking more from an industry perspective, and that is not there.
As we look ahead, Rohan, just briefly, as the last question today, what is your outlook for the ad industry?
The outlook for the industry in the future is good. In the new year, I hope it's good, because we had a tough year starting with April, and some of us really took a hit. I suppose it's the smaller agencies that took a hit. I don't know about the large agencies because they continue to do good work. But some of us took a really bad hit. And advertising is what the client cuts out first so that they show a better bottom line. So it's like the stock market. As soon as something happens, the ad industry knows it because we get chopped and budgets get cut in half. So this year, I'm hoping that given the situation in the country where there seems to be a very positive feel for what's going to happen, I believe that in the next few months, we are looking at something positive. At least there will be a resurgence, there will be a generation of income that will have to happen because of the circumstances that we are in. And if the economy is the engine for the country, I would say advertising is a spark plug for that engine. So the economy needs to start working.
So here's to a creative decade ahead.
Thank you very much.
We've been discussing the ad industry with Rohan Rajaratnam, Managing Director of Words Advertising. On the other side, we have Anushan Selvaraja with more.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal. LMD podcast now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
We are a Sri Lankan bank. This is our home. That's why we are committed towards the future of this country, funding national development initiatives, because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
Welcome back to Benchmark. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now for a closer look at the latest on the bourse, joining me is market analyst and LMD columnist Hasita Premratnam. Welcome back to the show, Hassan. Now, as usual, how is the bourse performing at this point of time?
I think the market has been very volatile. We've seen initially the positive momentum coming in, but then since then there have been some correction that's happening, and foreigners have been more onto the selling side, and we've also seen some sizable amount of foreign selling and also institutional buying still not yet coming in an aggressive way. Of course, the retailers have been in the market. But overall, we've seen some slowdown in the activity levels as well as in the index movement.
What is your take on the tax cuts? Have they been as effective?
I think it's way too early because some changes started 1st December, some changes are happening 1st January, and some of the changes are happening 1st April. So obviously, it's way too early to see results, but I think the important thing would be to see whether the tax cuts that have been done and the almost 500 billion, close to 500 billion worth of money that would have otherwise gone to the government stays back with the with the public and starts getting rolled into consumption and give a boost to the consumption in the short term. Because we had a significant drop in the consumption in the last year or so, and that consumption drop did have a slowdown in the economic growth. So what we can expect is that this money coming into the marketplace, into the daily spending, etc., and driving the consumption up. And when the consumption drives up, on one side, the supply has to be consistent and improve, and if it doesn't happen, the inflation can go up, which is a concern that can come. But of course, hopefully the supply will support, and right now we have a oversupply situation in most cases, and that will get normalized, and prices will get more stabilized as it progresses. And in the meantime, of course, the other thing that can come in is that when the consumption increases, imported items can go up, and as a result, the rupee can come under pressure as well. So there, I think it's very important that the rupee movements are being managed with the inflows that come into the country as well. So this is where tourism will play a very important role in ensuring that the dollar income base will also continue to support the overall equation.
How do you see the global situation right now impacting our bourse moving forward?
Yeah, I think the US-Iran tensions looked pretty tough and was getting tensed 2 weeks ago, but it has eased off from where it was and looks like things have settled down to some extent. But having said that, how the US president operates is something completely unpredictable, and you never know what's ahead tomorrow. So the biggest impact would be on oil prices. Oil prices, which were at low 60s, shot up to almost $70 per barrel, and then kind of settled down a little bit from there. But of course, if the oil prices go beyond $70 per barrel, I think that's something that our economy has not predicted at the moment, and that can have a negative impact on the overall picture. But having said that, I think the tension should not go too far and settle down. But in the meantime, Brexit is moving forward on one side, so the European and the UK tensions will continue to be as is, and China-US trade war again has eased off, which is a positive sign from where it was 6 months ago, which clearly indicates that the US presidency is bringing in certain things as if it's a big issue at a time, but then it kind of dies down after a while. So markets are gradually absorbing this and learning not to overreact.
Thank you very much for joining us, Hasita.
Thank you.
That was market analyst and LMD columnist Hasita Premratnam. We'll be right back after a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
We are a Sri Lankan bank. This is our home. That's why we are committed towards the future of this country, funding national development initiatives, because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
Hello and welcome back to Benchmark. I'm Anshin Selvaraja. Now we're going to take an in-depth look at the new tax structure imposed by the government. And joining us from Frontier Research is Senior Product Lead, Anshari Pereira. Welcome back to the show, Anshari. Now, to start off with, just elaborate on this whole tax structure, please.
So some of the main changes that we saw was with regard to the pay tax system, which was removed, as well as the economic service charge and NBT, nation building tax. Those were also removed. And also there were revisions made to withholding tax, some of the sources related to withholding tax, as well as the VAT revisions. So in terms of pay tax, the removal of the pay tax means that employment income will become part of assessable income of an individual. And also the tax-free income threshold has been increased from 100,000 to 250,000 per month. In addition to that, the structure was also changed, where previously there were several slabs and the taxes range from 4 to 24%. Now this has been changed to just 3 slabs, going from 6 to 12 to 18%. The VAT rate was previously at 15%. This was brought down to 8%. And also the VAT registration threshold was increased. This was previously around 1 million per month. This was increased to 25 million, around 300 million per year now.
So what is the government hoping to achieve with these changes?
In terms of the impact, I think we are very likely to see an uptick in the consumer behavior and consumer sentiment, especially with these pay tax changes and also the salary increases that were introduced. Once they come in and people start feeling this increase in income, especially around the end of Jan when the salaries start coming in, we can definitely see improvement in consumer demand. So in an overall sense, the overall economic activity also will start improving over the next few months. But on the other hand, of course, if you look at the fiscal deficit, this is likely to stay around 6 to 7% because of the various tax cuts that were introduced. But of course, there is of course potential that this will reduce, given that they do implement some of these revenue collection measures that they've been talking about. So looking at the sectors that will be impacted by these tax revisions, so because of this improvement in consumer demand, one sector that will see an improvement or see a benefit is of course the retailers and the consumer goods companies. So another sector is the banking sector. The VAT on financial services did not change, it remained at 15%, but we did see the debt repayment levy being removed. So when you initially saw the DRL being implemented in 2018, afterwards we did see several banks say the effective tax rates increasing, some even over 60%. So this will come as a huge relief to the banking sector. In terms of the other sectors, like I said before, the corporate income taxes were revised downwards. So some of these sectors will see a benefit, like construction sector, as well as liquor and tobacco, and also manufacturing. These sectors are likely to see a benefit through these tax changes.
In terms of the general public thing, Anshari, which segments would actually benefit from these changes?
So firstly, if you look at the changes to the pay tax, if you compare the post-tax income of the previous structure to the new structure. So from 100,000 monthly income, these slabs basically will see an increase in the post-tax income. But if you look at what the segment is, which will gain the maximum benefit, it will be the segment which receives a monthly income of about 750,000. They will see the post-tax incomes increasing by over 10%. So the other segments will see an increase, but it will be a lower percentage increase to that 10% that we will see in that segment. So in terms of the withholding tax on interest, again, if you compare the post-tax interest income to the previous post-tax interest income, just to explain what the structure that was there before. Earlier, what was there was that all interest income was taxed at 5%. But now it will change to this progressive tax system where it will be taxed at 6, 12 and 18%. So in this, with regard to this change, what will happen is that from the lowest level we will see those post-tax interest incomes increasing until to about monthly interest income of about 640,000. Beyond that, they will see the interest incomes falling. So these are particularly large deposit amounts that will see those interest incomes falling. So these are the main segments that will be affected in terms of the individual incomes that will be affected by these tax changes.
Thank you very much for joining us, Anshari.
Thank you.
That was Senior Product Lead from Frontier Research, Anshari Pereira. Thank you for watching Benchmark, and we hope to see you again next time.